Welcome, Husker fans. Thank you for tuning into Big Red Radio, the Husker Talk Show. I am your host, as always, Caleb Generette, and next to me is my co-host, Zach Generette. Zach, how are you today?
Doing good, doing good. Possibility of me heading down to Lincoln on Saturday, hitting up the senior day, last game of the season. Will be a record high 3 Nebraska games attended this season, at Lincoln. So that's pretty good. Pretty happy with myself, on that. Looking to break that record next year, maybe get up in the 5-6 range.
There you go.
Um, and eventually become a season ticket holder at at the Memorial. So, but yeah, hoping to see a good game this weekend. That'll be more talked about on Thursday. But I definitely think it should be a good one.
Yeah, 100%. So, social shout out before we get into it: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, all down below in the description. Follow all those for continual updates. We did not do coaching power rankings this weekend. We are doing a coaching video today, as you can tell. Um, yeah, so getting right into it. Being honest, I know usually Tuesdays are recap days. I don't think anybody really wants to hear about the Michigan game. Um, Kind of wasn't shocking. Like I wasn't shocked with the outcome at all. Wasn't surprised. Nothing happened that I was surprised about. Not a lot of positives to take away from the game, really. We did have a few things that we'll get into before we get into the coaching talk, but um, yeah, I'll start it off. I guess what I wanted to say was I kind of apologizing to a few people because Nebraska fan base really bashed on Chubba Purdy and Mark Whipple last week after that Minnesota loss, and it was tough. And I was right there with him. I don't think I was bashing on him, but I was saying Smothers deserves to start. Chubba just can't get it done. Mark Whipple needs to run the ball more, and we saw in this game that Chubba was moving the ball. I mean, he was moving the ball on the top defense in the country. Um, just playing relaxed. It sucks that he's out for the year with his injury. But when Logan Smothers came back in, not trying to bash on Logan or anything, but he's just not the thrower of the football that you need to be in Mark Whipple's offense. And when Mark Whipple went down, we saw Mickey Joseph take over play calling, and there was nothing. I mean, it was just nothing going. And you can call for the run all you want, but Nebraska wasn't getting anything in the run game. Michigan's run defense is the best in the country. So you got to throw your way back in. You got to try to throw your way back into it. And Logan Smothers just couldn't do it as well as Chuba was doing it. So little bit of an apology to Chuba and Mark Whipple for bashing them so bad last week.
Yeah. For me, I feel like we found out the Big Ten formula as far as what we need to go after in recruiting and what we need to go after in play callers and just players in general and scheming. And if you look at the top teams in the Big Ten, you look at Minnesota, Illinois, Purdue, and obviously Michigan and Ohio State. Everyone but Ohio State has the same formula in there, and that formula is a very good running back, a very good O line, and not a great QB, but just a really efficient one. And so you look at guys like JJ McCarthy, DeVito, um, Minnesota introduced quarterbacks as well, uh, having good years, but not outstanding years. They're just very efficient, very accurate, very poised in the pocket. And they have really good offensive lines, and they just run the ball. And I feel like that it's possible for us to build that here, but I don't think we should try to build that Ohio State air raid offense, that I feel like we're trying to lean towards. I think passing is definitely something that's growing into the game, and that will, you know, we definitely can use, but I think we gotta in the future gotta run the ball. And I think now we know like it obviously works. Teams like Maryland are not having success with their scheme. Teams like us, I guess you could even say, with our scheme, not having success in the Big Ten, Indiana, Rutgers, teams that are running, that more pass heavy than run heavy offense aren't having success in the Big Ten. It's not surprising because if you look on the other end of it, they all are. And so it makes sense, and I feel like that's where we need to head.
Yeah, 100%. So just some more notes real quick about the future, kind of because they just came out today. Trey Palmer and Garrett Nelson will not walk on Saturday, possibly meaning they return. Garrett Nelson said he doesn't know, and I don't know if Trey Palmer had a press conference where he was asked that question, but um, it leaves the door open for them to return. Trey Palmer would be a little bit surprising to me, especially if Casey comes back and he has some really good games, because I think he could really boost his stock going to the combine, going to the pro days, stuff like that. Just running super fast, being super athletic. And obviously he's already done enough this year to get the attention of scouts. So I don't know if he comes back. He's already been in college for 4 years. So um, maybe he decides he wants to leave. Maybe he decides he wants to come back because he thinks he can boost his draft stock even that more with a new coach and um, Mickey still being there, obviously. And then also Chuba Purdy is done for the year, as I mentioned, and Casey Thompson is day to day. I think it's safe to say he will 100% be back um, against Iowa, unless we were talking about this before, unless he plays against Wisconsin and re-aggravates his injury somehow. But definitely against Iowa, possibly back against Wisconsin, which is huge because if Casey comes back against those two teams, I really like our chances. If Logan starts, not as much, but I guess we'll see. We'll talk about that more on Thursday, but getting to the coach talk now. You saw the thumbnail,
Yes.
obviously. There is this is obviously I think this is the biggest decision in easily Nebraska football history and maybe the whole university. Um because Nebraska's been on this trend. They've been down, they've been losing seasons, only Power Five team in the country not to make a bowl game in the
Which we
last what
hey, okay.
5 years.
I don't like the way that sounds because it's not technically true.
It
Because
is true.
well, in the COVID year we made one.
We were 5-7.
Sure, but we made one and we declined our opportunity
Yeah,
to take.
it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to me at all because we weren't good enough to actually be bowl eligible.
Okay, that's true. That's true. That's fair.
But yeah, just the way Nebraska's been going, if this hire is wrong, if Trev makes the wrong decision, not only is Trev out the door with the coach, Nebraska football, I mean, the sellout streak is done. If we keep losing, I don't know how much fans can hold on to it anymore. And you can say all you want, the boosters are just going to keep buying the tickets. They're not going to buy tickets for a losing football team. And as of right now, this is the best the Nebraska job is going to look because you still can take from all the previous success. You can still have the super expensive facilities. You can still have the fan base that wants to support so bad. That's not going to happen if you keep losing. So if there's another losing coach in here, Nebraska football might forever or never be the same. Not even close. Like, yes, we'll still have the facilities. Yes, fans will still show up. Maybe not as many. They won't sell out the stadium. But it's super important. And I do think Trev is going to make the right decision. Um, but man, some of the rumors I've been hearing are crazy. So that's why we wanted to make this video right now because we don't know when the next coach is going to be announced. I think it's probably going to be after the Iowa game, um, but you never really know. I think the latest it's announced is after the Iowa game for sure, because at least like after everybody's
I,
played, maybe the Sunday after.
I don't see it being announced before then.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of disrespectful to Mickey
Mhm.
announcing it before then because right now this is Mickey's team, and no matter I don't care who gets hired. If they were to get hired before the Iowa game, it's Mickey's team, and I don't think that. And the only reason it would be before the Iowa game is if it's someone like Matt Rule, and I don't think Matt Rule cares if he gets announced before or after the
Mhm.
Iowa game. And so I think for sure it will be within the few days after the Iowa game
Yeah.
that we hear the announcement of the coach. Um, and I guess you just want to talk about potential candidates, or
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to get into. So we have five realistic future uh, coaches, no particular order. I was going to let you decide who you wanted to talk to for about first. So go for it.
I mean, I'll take the one with the most smoke around it right now, and that's Matt
All
Rule.
right.
No one has close to the same amount of rumors as Matt Rule, a guy I don't know how Caleb. I don't think Caleb feels the same way about him as I do. I'm super high on the guy. He showed up to Temple, flipped them around to the next level. Went to Baylor, flipped them around. Had a 1-11 record his first year, which is not surprising considering all the recruiting sanctions they had going for him. They pretty much were put on the back end of recruiting compared to every other team in the nation that year, and a lot of players left. It's a lot like the Penn State Sandusky, um, whatever situation. And so one of the hardest jobs to go into and actually win games and flip them around to an 11-1 regular season, then lost to Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game to end the season 11-2, and that was in just 3 years. And he left to go to the NFL, and a lot of people I feel like are comparing him to Urban Meyer with him jumping ship and going to different programs, but I feel like he left Temple to go to a Power Five job. He left a Power Five job to go to the NFL. He failed miserably in the NFL. I don't see him leaving a Power Five job if he gets it. At least not soon. Like I'm not gonna say he's going to come to Nebraska and retire here by any means, but I also don't see him if he were coming here to leave in 3 years. I don't see that either. I think it's a more of an 8-9 year kind of program that he hasn't. I just feel like he's been in this situation of flipping programs around before, and so that's a real big reason on why I like him. And he's been a successful college coach, and since he was successful in the college world and not in the NFL, that shows me that he's a really good recruiter. And so if you can bring him and Mickey in on the same team, I don't know why you couldn't get anyone you wanted.
Yeah. So I'm not as big on Matt Rule. I think he's fine. I think he would do fine. I think he'd do okay. I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here because Zach just set off a whole lot of good things. So I'm gonna say some of the reasons why I don't like it as much. He's never turned a program around. He's Temple was consistently winning 7, 8, 9 games a year. They had a bad year. He came in, lost or won like 2 games, I think, and then went back to the 8, 9, had a 10 and maybe an 11 year or at 11 win. But yeah, he's never inherited anything crazy. You can talk about the Baylor situation all you want. It's not what you think it is. I mean, a lot of people left, but also he returned his starting quarterback, 3 of his starting O linemen, 4 of his top 7 receivers. So it's not like he inherited a bunch of walk-ons. It's not like he inherited a
Well,
bunch of
no,
freshmen that
but
were playing. And also he's had good years. I'll give him that. He's had really good years where he's won 10, 11 games. He's never beat a team that finished with more than 8 wins.
yeah,
Never,
and
not once.
I do get that. I do get that.
Like he won
But
a lot of games. He won a lot
an
of games
11
in
and
the Big
1,
12. But that was when the
listen to
Big
this.
12 was bad.
In an 11-1 season, 11-2, I guess, and nobody that you beat had more than 8 wins, at that point, that's not exactly your fault.
Sure, no, I agree. I'm not.
You beat 11 teams. You beat 11 teams. It's not your fault that none of them ended up with 8 wins. You
No,
know what I
that's
mean?
not. That's not. Yeah, that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't think he's as proven as people think he is. I think Temple was a good run. He did good there. He beat Penn State when he was at Temple. Penn State only finished with 7 wins, actually. So there's that statistic for you. But then he went to a Baylor job that needed somebody, and they hired a good guy in Matt Rule, and Matt Rule turned it around, not necessarily with recruiting, with his coaching, with his analytic work. So he used a lot of speed and strength analytics, which is why he got the jump up to the NFL because that's a lot more what the NFL rides on. Obviously, you don't recruit in the NFL. I mean, I guess free agency, whatever, but I don't know. I don't know. Another thing
Okay,
is
what
he
about this?
hasn't. Well, hold on.
What if
Matt Rule hasn't been in college since the transfer portal has been a thing, since NIL's been a thing. How long do you think it'll take for him to pick that up? Because if
Well,
he
it's
comes
a
in,
whole lot
any
easier.
team
It's a
he's
whole lot
came
easier when you
into,
got a guy like Mickey Joseph to help you out.
sure,
You know
no,
what I
I
mean?
agree. I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm not saying Matt Rule would be an F higher. I think he would be a B minus higher at best. Reminds me
Okay,
a
what
lot
about
of
this?
Mike Riley, honestly.
Okay,
No,
uh,
I'm just saying. Mike Riley
he's way more.
never had any big wins. He was fine. He was good at Oregon State. Never beat Oregon. Never beat USC's. Never beat the UCLA's. He just was fine. He beat all the teams he should have, and he lost to the teams he shouldn't have or should have lost to.
Okay, what about this? Matt Rule stayed at Baylor instead of going to Carolina. All right, he goes 10-3, 10-2. Right, he goes 10-2 regular season, and like 9-3 regular season. Wherever you could flip flop those, because I believe he only spent 2 years with the Panthers, correct? Or is it three?
2 full years, fired in his third.
Okay, yeah. So let's say 3 years with Baylor. He goes 10-2, 9-3, and another 10-2 season, right? And wins a Big 12 title in one of those years. Is he now a proven coach?
It
You know what I
depends.
mean?
Is he going to beat anybody good? Like he hasn't
Because
beat the best team he's
are we
beaten is a
judging him
seven
off of
and
his
five
NFL?
Penn State team. That's his best
How
win.
much are we how much are we judging him off of his NFL career? Because I feel like that should
No,
mean nothing.
it doesn't
I
mean
feel like that
nothing.
should mean I feel like that should mean literally nothing.
Sure, I can wipe
Because
it.
the
I'm fine
Panthers,
with wiping that. I didn't mention anything. I didn't mention anything about his
I
NFL career.
understand that. But the Panthers had nothing but
Mhm.
McCaffrey.
Sure,
Like literally nothing. And
but he also
you
didn't like. What do you want him to do at Nebraska? Like, what is like Nebraska? A Nebraska coach next year is going to have to do more with less. And Matt Rule has never shown that he can do more with less. When he's had not his guys in, he's won two games. When he's finally got his guys in, he wins game. He beats the teams he should. He beats the bad teams, but he can never beat a good team.
and I'm not saying
That's the reason Scott Frost got fired is because he couldn't beat the big time games. He couldn't win them.
no, I understand that. And I'm not saying Matt Rule is the best hire in the world out there for us, but realistically, are we gonna get a Lane Kiffin? Are we
I
gonna
think it's
get
more
a
realistic than you think.
I
I don't
understand
know.
that, but are we gonna
I
get a
don't
Luke
want to
Fickle?
I
Are
don't
we
want to
gonna
spend
get
this whole video talking about Matt Rule, but yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think he's a good football coach. I think he would be successful at Nebraska. It just depends on what you want Nebraska to be. I don't think he can take from what he's shown us, I don't know if he can take Nebraska to the top, beating Wisconsin's every year, beating Michigan's every once in a while, beating Ohio State's every once in a while. I don't know if Matt Rule can do that. These other teams that we're talking about, I think, have a better shot to do that than he does. That's the only thing.
no, I understand, but I just realistically, how likely is it that we're gonna get those guys?
Sure. No, I'm which is why I want to move on to a guy that you were talking about.
And
So
why
no,
can't
go on.
why can't Rule come in here and Mickey sit under him for 4 or 5 years and then Mickey take over?
Sure, but I don't think that should be our goal. I think our goal should be to win football games with the coach we hire. I don't think our goal should be to hire somebody that can train Mickey so Mickey can take over eventually.
That's
Like
fair. That's
best
fair.
case scenario, you want this coach to stay here forever and win and win and win and win and win. So that's my only thought on it. I love Mickey to death. Mickey came out and said today that he would be fine with staying on as an assistant in Nebraska if he didn't get I don't know if he said this, but probably if he didn't get like other big time head coaching jobs. Um, so I don't think we have any worry on losing Mickey. I think any coach that comes in would love to have Mickey on the staff. So
Oh, for sure.
moving on to a guy that Zach mentioned that I don't think has been getting talked about enough. Luke Fickle. Luke Fickle would be a home run hire. He's a defensive minded coach. He's won at Cincinnati. He's taken Cincinnati to a college football playoff. Yes, they got beat by Alabama, put up a better fight against Alabama than a lot of teams did that year. He has Big Ten experience at Ohio State. He was a D coordinator at Ohio State. And I'm tired of hearing he won't leave. Yes, he's turned down other offers before. Maybe those weren't like the best jobs that he wanted. Like Michigan State, you see what Michigan State's doing this year. Maybe Mel Tucker is not the savior. People thought Mel Tucker was the savior because he turned Michigan State into an 8-win football team. Maybe that's not what Luke Fickle wants. Luke Fickle wants to win big games. And everybody's argument is he's waiting for the Ohio State job. Like, what is he waiting for? Ryan Day is younger, if not the same age as Luke Fickle. And the way it seems, Ryan Day is not leaving for the NFL anytime soon. Luke Fickle, there's no chance, as good of a coach he is, Cincinnati is paying them all they can. They're giving him $5 million a year. I highly doubt they can pay him any more than that.
No,
Nebraska,
they actually just last year upped his salary.
what, to
And so I'm
5.2?
guessing
I think is what they said.
they what?
I think they upped it to the 5 million that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And so I mean, after he makes the playoff, I think if
Right.
you could give him 10, you'd give him 10, but I don't think
Right.
they physically can.
And Nebraska can give out 10 million. I don't know if Trev wants to. I don't understand why he wouldn't want to. If the only thing holding you back from getting these big time coaches and money, who cares? Nebraska makes $10 million in 2 games. Like, it's not going to matter that much. It's really not going to matter. Scott Frost's buyout, nobody cares about it anymore. You haven't heard anybody talking about, man, how are we going to recover from Scott Frost's $15 million buyout? Like, it's not a big deal. Like, we have boosters, obviously, that'll pay a lot of money if their football team can be good. And Luke Fickle would do that for us. So I think Luke Fickle is a legit contender to get this job. I think whoever gets this job, we're going to look back on it and say, wow, I didn't think that was realistic. And there's a couple more guys on this list that fit that criteria as well.
Yeah, I like Luke Fickle. Another one that I would say fits that criteria is Lane Kiffin, for sure. And Lane Kiffin's proven he dang near and should have. He had him on the ropes, had Alabama on the ropes, and should have beat Saban, his old boss, pretty much, when he was there as an OC. And I feel like Lane Kiffin's proven in multiple areas. He's beat the big time teams, and I feel like he does have a reason to leave because he's not going to win the SEC.
Mm.
And I feel like you could say that about a lot of SEC coaches. You could say that about Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops will not win the SEC at Kentucky. It's just not going to happen, right? You're not going to beat the Tennessee now, I guess. You're not going to beat the Tennessees. You're not going to beat the Georgias, and you're not going to beat the Alabamas year in and year out. Ole Miss might compete, maybe makes a title game, but you're not winning the title. And LSU now, I guess you can throw it in there. You're not going to beat LSU year in and year out because they're back where they were with Brian Kelly. And so that's my reason for him to leave, and he has proven. He does have a little bit of a tie here, I guess. It's been said that Lane Kiffin was interested in the job when Frost got hired, but
I don't know if it was with Frost. I think it might have been when Bo Pelini got hired or when Solich got hired. Whenever he was coming off of his USC offensive coordinator, because then he went to I don't remember where he went. Tennessee, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, well, at one point Lane Kiffin was interested in the job. I don't know. Does that interest ever leave, or do you always want to go back and see what you can do at a place like Nebraska? But again, why would Lane Kiffin, just playing devil's advocate like Caleb, why would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss to come to a place like Nebraska when he can go to a place like Auburn? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where Auburn honestly probably could pay a little more than us.
I don't know if they could pay more. I feel like it's probably close to the same, if not Nebraska, maybe more. The only thing I do agree with you that Auburn maybe has a better shot at him just because he spent so much time in the South now. He spent time at Tennessee. He spent time at Florida Atlantic, spent time under Nick Saban at Alabama, now is in Mississippi. I think he spent so much time in the South that maybe he just wants to stay in the South where he's familiar and has recruiting ties and um, really just set his feet down instead of moving all the way to the Midwest where he's never coached before. Not saying he wouldn't do good. I would love Lane Kiffin. But yeah, I mean, I do think Auburn may actually have a better chance at landing him than we do.
Who do you want to talk about next, Caleb?
Let's see. We got two more. I'll save the big time one for last. Let's talk about Lance Leipold. So Lance Leipold snuck onto this list for me. Not really snuck on, because early in the year he was a lot of people's number one guy, because he had KU at 5-0, had all these big what looked like big time wins. And since then it's been kind of downhill. They did qualify for a bowl, took him to a bowl game for the first time in a long time, over a decade. And yeah, I mean they've lost some games. They just beat a big or top 25 opponent. They were without their starting quarterback, but he's a proven rebuilder. Um, I need a big time game from him to make me feel a little bit better. The game, looking back, the games that he did win, he should have won. Which I mean, you can never discount a coach for winning the games they should, and I mean losing the games you shouldn't. I guess a little bit with Texas Tech, but they didn't have their starting quarterback. So yeah, I mean it's just a little weird for him right now. The defense has been horrible. Um, I don't, but how much can you account to him because he's an offensive head coach and he's at KU. So how much do you expect him to turn KU? Like he's turned KU around from the bottom of the barrel of college football, and they're going to a bowl. Like I don't know. I feel good about Lance Leipold. I would be excited if Lance Leipold was hired, um, but not as much as maybe these home run guys like Luke Fickle and Lane Kiffin. But yeah, no, I like Lane. I like Lance. I like Lance Leipold.
Yeah. I don't know how you can't say Lance Leipold is just the same scenario as Matt Rule. Uh,
Well, because no, listen. Because Lance Leipold has, let's take his D3. Let's take his D3 stuff out of it. Even though what in D3 he was like a 4-time national champ.
oh,
Um,
he was the D3 god.
Yeah. So, but then he goes to Buffalo, and then he turns around Buffalo, who was even in a worse spot than Kansas was in a group of five, turns them around into an 8-win, 10-win program, and they're still bad. Like since losing him, they're still bad. Um, Comes to Kansas, which is already Buffalo and Kansas is already two much tougher places to win than Temple and Baylor. Baylor is in the heart of Texas, where you're going to get football guys. Like you're going to get the 4 stars that might not start at Texas. You're going to get the 3 stars that don't have a chance to play at Texas. So when you go to a place like that, it's a little bit harder. And then when you go to a place like Kansas, you're not even the best football school in your state. Like neither is Baylor, but at least they're in Texas. Like you're in Kansas and you're the second most successful program. Like I think what Lance Leipold does, his resume, I think is better than what Matt Rules is. But I do agree with you. I think they're pretty close. And what would get me
Just as far
excited.
as like Leipold has no big wins. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, but
His
also
biggest win this year is Oklahoma. Or
sure I
no, he
get
lost to
that. But
Oklahoma. He
people
lost
aren't
to Oklahoma.
arguing. Yeah, no, they lost to Oklahoma. But he has a top 25 win. Like the
Against
quarterback
who?
was out, Oklahoma
Oh,
State. But
okay.
the quarterback was out, but
George down.
both starting quarterbacks were out. Jace, like their backup quarterback was playing against Oklahoma State's backup quarterback.
No, I
So
understand
can you
that,
really
but
fault them for
KU
beating a
also
guy with
didn't
a
get
backup
KU
quarterback?
didn't get blown out. KU did not get blown out the week before. Like a such a down Oklahoma State team. Like is that really a big win? Is it?
I think it's a big time win. It's more top 25. Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly how many top 25 wins Matt Rule has. Maybe they were top 25 when he beat them, but also as I said, he's never beat anybody with 8 wins. So, yeah, no, I think their resume is very similar. I like Lance Leipold's resume a lot more, just because he has more experience and he has more experience in a lot of different places. He was at Nebraska before. He has Big Ten ties. He went to school at Wisconsin. He coached up in Buffalo. He is now coaching once again in the Midwest in at Kansas, and he's shown that he can use the transfer portal to his advantage. So, yeah, I mean, I do like Lance Leipold more, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's by a ton.
Do you see Leipold leaving?
Yeah,
You
I
do?
think so. Maybe not this year. Maybe he wins a little bit more, but he's not. I mean, I guess you could say
If he doesn't
maybe.
leave this year, he's not our coach. I mean, that's the hard
Sure.
part about
No,
it.
that's
You
I
know what I
see.
mean?
Yeah, I don't see him leaving for Nebraska. I mean, this is the first year this is the only year he's gonna be able to leave for Nebraska, but I could see him leaving for a bigger school if the job opens up. Like
Oh,
if
absolutely.
let's say I don't even know. Like let's say the Oklahoma job opens up. I could definitely
No,
see
yeah,
him going to
absolutely.
Oklahoma.
The facilities at KU aren't the same. The recruiting ability at KU isn't where it needs to be. Um, the fan support at KU has fallen off since the start of the season. It's nowhere near. They're still storming the field. That's ridiculous. Honestly, it is. It is ridiculous in my eyes. Fun fact for you: Lincoln Memorial has never been stormed,
Yeah.
ever in the history of the stadium. Now that might have to do with a lot with the 12-foot walls and the fence around the field, but Lincoln
Act like you've
Memorial has
been
never
there
been
before.
stormed. Yeah, because we have. All right, we have. And I'm sorry that KU's never been there and never got a 6-win season, but
Uh, they won an Orange
you know,
Bowl in 2008. They were the number 2 team in the nation for a long
I
time.
understand. Yes, I understand that, but
KU's my school.
I
KU's
think
where
it's
I go to school, so don't talk too much trash
I,
on them.
no, I think it's ridiculous that they continue to
No,
storm the
I
field
agree.
like that.
I do agree. I do agree.
You're hurting for money in the first place. Quit getting your school fines. You're never going to get another good coach when Leipold leaves because they're going to have to pay back all your stupid storming the field fines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So
a couple others that I have seen pop up. They've since lost some of their steam on that. TCU coach Gary Patterson, or former TCU coach
he's
Gary
at Texas
Patterson.
now. He's their analyst. He's an analyst. Yeah, I mean, he would be fine. He would I mean, I,
Also, let's just do it.
we have one more
Dion
guy.
Sanders.
Yeah, that's our we have I was going to say we have
I
one more.
I don't think it's realistic. I don't at all.
I don't know.
Not
I think I think where there's smoke, there's fire. And before the Matt Rule stuff was coming out, there was some really credible people saying Dion is already like signed.
no, I
So
understand that. I don't think Trev would hire
I mean, Trev's a smart guy. Listen,
him.
I don't think Trev
I,
is stubborn enough to think like this guy hasn't done anything. There's like we can't hire him. Like
no,
I
Trev
understand if
straight
you're
up said
saying
in his
like
press conference. Trev said, "These are my qualities. I'm not going to stray away." His top quality was Power Five experience.
sure,
Dion Dion has zero. He doesn't even
unless
have
I mean,
close.
yeah, no, I agree.
I mean,
I think there's
he
some
doesn't even
interest
have
there.
group of five experience, let alone Power Five
Right.
experience.
I think that there is legit interest both ways. I'm not saying Dion's going to be the next head coach. I think
Also,
Trev has talked to
people,
Dion's people. I think that is a fact. I think Trev has definitely reached out to Dion to at least talk to him. I think
yeah,
Trev's
I
reached
mean,
out to almost everybody.
yeah, and I feel like I don't know.
Well, let's talk about some stuff with Dion. So it's, I mean, as you said, Trevin's press conference said he's not going to try to win the press conference. And I mean, Dion's the definition of a flashy hire that
Mhm.
Trev said he didn't want to make. But you got to think about it. Dion Sanders is the best recruiter in the nation. It's not even close. He has more five
Yeah.
stars in the last 2 years at Jackson State, a D2 school, than Nebraska has in a decade. Nebraska hasn't got a five
Well,
star in a
it's not a D
decade.
two school. It's not a D two school. It's an
Oh,
FCS.
FCS school, an FCS school. Still, FCS Division One, sure, but still, when was the last time an FCS school got a five star besides Jackson State? I don't know if it's ever happened.
Okay. You got
Let's
to
talk
also
about the
think
number
about the
one guy in the nation deciding he wants to play at an FCS school.
honestly, this is gonna come off as very rude and very mean, but honestly, he lessened his career potential because of doing that exponentially.
Yeah, maybe, but also maybe not because he's a defensive back and he's working with the greatest defensive back of all time.
I understand that, but
Sure,
a lot
maybe.
of that a lot of that also has to do with not just Dion Sanders, but the HBCU part.
Sure. No, I understand that 100%. But the fact that HBCUs have never done it before, like you can't just say
Well,
it's
I get
it's an
that.
HBCU, so that's why he went there. Because an HBCUs just it's not like HBCUs were just getting in before. So
That's true.
I
But I feel
mean,
like
it's
HBCUs has kind of popped up out of
sure.
nowhere.
And I think a big part of that is Dion Sanders.
And what's he gonna pop up at Nebraska like he did at
He is going to
HBCU?
make Nebraska fun again if he's the next head coach. Definitely, I definitely think that Dion would get top 10 recruiting classes at Nebraska. The dude can recruit. The dude knows how to talk. The dude knows how to make people want to play. People would get fired up to play for Dion the same way they would get fired up to play for Mickey, if not
That's true.
more. I mean, this is Dion Sanders. Dion Sanders has
That's
won
true.
wherever
And
he's
I've
been. He's
said,
won in the NFL, won in college, won in the MLB, won as a high school coach. Now he's won at the FCS level. Like he just wins.
and I've told people, if Dion and Mickey go after a guy together, they're getting
They're
him.
gonna get him.
I don't care. I don't care who it is. I don't. They're getting him,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's no, like you said, there's no reason he can't get top 10 classes. My only fear is Dion an elite level coach, not just recruiter, but like actually a coach.
Sure.
That's where my fear is. You'd have to get some next level, next level coordinators in there to help Dion out because, like we saw, like we saw with Mickey, he can't really call plays. We
Mm-hmm.
saw it in the Michigan game, and I know that Dion is a great play caller, especially with him being a more defensive mind. And so you got to get a really good offensive coordinator. It's not going to be Mark Whipple because he's gone after this year, I'd hope. And uh, I'd be okay with keeping Bill Bush as the defensive coordinator.
As a special teams
Um,
coordinator. I don't know if he's the best defensive coordinator.
or okay,
Fine,
fine,
but
yeah, okay. So we get a new defensive coordinator, whatever. Here's the thing with Dion: if he comes here, his son is for sure transferring here,
sure. Travis Hunter, probably
without a
as
doubt.
well.
Yeah, probably as well. Um, does his son start?
I don't know. I don't even want to talk about that because it's just like so much speculation. Like I don't want to
That's
make
true.
the
That's fair.
discussion that would Sanders start over Casey Thompson when like there may not even be a conversation to be had. Like who knows?
Oh,
Like
over
he's
Casey
not.
Thompson, absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Shadur Sanders is a good quarterback. I'll say that. He was a 4-star or 3-star coming out. So he's good enough to play. He was committed to Florida Atlantic before he switched and went to Jackson State because his dad started coaching there. But yeah, no, as you mentioned, we don't know how good of a coach Dion is. But he can probably pull great assistants if he can pull recruits at that level. So I have no doubt he could do that. But yeah.
Yeah, and then some other ones that emerged a little bit ago, like we were saying, Gary Patterson, now an assistant at Texas. Baylor's Dave Aranda. I don't see him leaving,
Yeah,
honestly.
I think
I don't
Baylor already
see that.
said, or a source from Baylor said, like they would match anything that any school would offer. Maybe Dave Aranda wants to leave, but also maybe
I
not.
don't
So
see him wanting to leave. I don't think he's going to get a good enough offer to leave yet. Um, NC State's Dave Doran
mm,
would be okay. Army's Jeff Monken
I'm not a
is,
fan of that one.
yeah, me either. I don't think he's proven.
I mean, it's fine.
And then Alabama offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien.
Out on him. I am 100% out on him. This has been
Yeah,
Alabama's worst offensive year in like 10 years.
yeah, for sure. Uh, Matt Campbell I'm gonna go ahead and say no. I don't like that
I
at
think
all.
everybody's out on him.
Um, I tried to talk to an Iowa State fan last night about Matt Campbell and why I don't want to. I tried to tell him he's literally Mike Riley. Like that's what he is. He's soft. Uh, and he's not going to push the players hard. And he tried to tell me if he wasn't. I don't know. I think he is.
We'll see.
There's a reason all the guys that year left to go to Oregon State. It's because when Scott Frost came in, he actually pushed him. Scott Frost early years was a good coach. Scott Frost late years was not.
Yeah. So yeah,
And so right now, as far as ranking them, I would probably go number one is Fickle, probably. I just feel like that's got to be everyone's number one.
Fickle or
Um, number two is Kiffin, probably. Number three, this is gonna come pretty crazy. Number three here, I'm gonna go Matt Rule over
okay.
Dion because I feel like Matt Rule has a better resume as far as coaching than
Sure.
Dion, and I don't know if we're paying Dion a ton of money, I don't know that we're going to be able to pay all the coordinators a ton of money as well, and I feel like we have to if we have Dion.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll go Dion after that, just for the like we said, if Dion and Mickey recruit together, I don't see anyone that they go after not coming here. And then my five is going to be Lance Leipold.
Yeah. No, if I was to rank him, five would be Rule for me. Leipold at 4, Dion at 3, and it's pretty close between Fickle and Kiffin. I would say Kiffin would be my 1, Fickle would be my 2, but they're like neck and neck. Like if you if you told me one thing about either of them, like I could flip them. It 1 and 2 are it's pretty much 1A 1B for me. So man, I think people are gonna be surprised at who gets hired. But yeah, so this was our coaching video for we'll definitely have more. Maybe not before the announcement. Um, but after, I mean, obviously
What about
we're gonna
Chris
have a reaction.
Kleiman? Real
Yeah,
quick,
I
do
think
we
he's
think Chris Kleiman's even realistic?
yeah, I mean, no, I don't think he's realistic to get him.
No.
I think he's set at K State. So
Yep.
so yeah, that's what we got for this for this episode. On Thursday we will talk about the Wisconsin game. Don't worry, the season's not over. Obviously, we have more to talk about. Just wanted to get this out because there's so many rumors happening, and this is what you guys want to see. So yeah, let us know what you think. Comment down below who your top 5 coaches are currently. Anybody we didn't talk about that we probably should have talked about, or anybody that we did talk about that isn't realistic to you. Let us know. Um, but yeah, Zach, you got anything else?
Nope.
All right. We will see you guys on Friday.